Hello everyone, Supersonic Corey here. If you saw my review for Star Wars The Phantom Menace, you would know that I think that The Phantom Menace is really boring. And that really causes me to hate the film, and I gave it my lowest grade. And when I watched The Phantom Menace, I was thinking, ugh, do I really have to watch Attack of the Clones? I heard it's worse than The Phantom Menace. Ugh. But when I watched Attack of the Clones, I will be completely honest, I'm one of the very few people who actually prefer Attack of the Clones than The Phantom Menace. Do I think it's good? No, not really. I think Attack of the Clones is a bad movie. But if I had to choose to watch one of the two prequels, I would rather watch Attack of the Clones than The Phantom Menace. Because while The Phantom Menace is boring, I'd say the movie is just bad, but more just because of problems and it's more interesting, and I more describe it as underwhelming than boring. Now, a lot of people seem to complain that the story is sort of aiming at the wrong place. People complain about all this romance stuff, and at first I was thinking, guys, the romance is kind of necessary, because without this romance, Anakin wouldn't end up having Luke and Leia, who would become the main protagonists, and they sort of need to be born before Anakin completely turns to the dark side. So I thought it was necessary. But after a while, I started to realize where people were coming from, and I was thinking, yeah, it needs the romance, but it doesn't have to be the focus of the film. If you want my opinion on how the story for this movie should have been, go and watch my review for The Phantom Menace. It's about the romance between Anakin and this woman. I forget her name actually, and I can't be bothered to look up her name because I'm lazy. They are sort of falling in love with each other, like they love each other, which would be natural and everything, but apparently there's this rule that was created in this movie that apparently Jedi are not allowed to love.
You serious?
Seriously, why are the Jedi people not allowed to love? Because love is basically how you get to create more of your species, in a way. And love is human nature. We are pretty much designed to love each other. You are forbidding something that is human nature. It's like not being allowed to laugh at anything that's funny. You just can't help it. The next thing we know, Jedi are going to be forbidden to breathe. And while we've got all this forbidden love stuff going on, Obi-Wan's subplot is basically he's trying to find out who's trying to assassinate the Queen, I believe it is. Like, he's trying to figure out who the killer is. And it's just meh to me. Like, it's not really that interesting, but it's more watchable than The Phantom Menace in my opinion. Maybe that's probably because the action in this movie is a lot more frequent. When I think of action, I only think of the pod race and the Darth Maul fight from the original Star Wars prequel, The Phantom Menace. Yeah, I know that in the end of The Phantom Menace there was 4 different battles going on all at the same time, but the Darth Maul lightsaber fight was the only one I really cared about. Here, we've got quite a lot of scenes that people go, oh, CGI galore, it's boring and bland, and it's just pathetic, there's so much stuff all over the screen. And the characters don't really act, like you don't see any concerned look on their face, it's so overly choreographed and overly rehearsed and all this stuff. And while I will agree there are some action sequences in this movie I don't really enjoy, there are some other ones that I do enjoy watching, which is why I feel like it's more watchable than the first one. Early on into Attack of the Clones, we get this scene that's like taking place high in the sky with all these like hovering cars and everything, with a great use of sound, and it's just a really cool thing to look at. Yeah, it's overly filled with CGI, but it's just nice to look at. It's just cool, and it's a really fun chase scene. I also really enjoy the conveyor belt scene for some reason. I don't know why. I just think it's a rather cool, interesting sort of scene. Like, it's visually interesting, like it's rather creative, even though this scene was extremely last minute, I heard. Now, as a little kid, I actually just happened to see one of my family members watching this scene, and I watched this particular scene, and it was really the only scene I watched, and I actually got really invested when I watched this scene as a kid. I was thinking, oh no, that lava thing is going to fall on the girl. I still don't know what her name is. But, oh no, she's gonna die. How's she gonna escape and all this stuff? If you have kids, they are going to enjoy the action from this movie. The arena fight scene, the arena scene, it's got a million Jedi and a million, like, cyborgs just swinging lightsabers around, and it's just so much stuff all over the screen. It's okay, I guess. And then we've got this big, massive battle scene, like lightsabers flying around, guns, ships, and these big robots and droids and everything. There's dirt like it's out in the desert. So much CGI. And I'm thinking, oh, this is exhausting. This is exhausting to watch. There's so much stuff all over the screen. And then we have an action scene where Yoda pulls out a lightsaber and fights the sudden appearance of this villain named Count Dooku. And he just comes out of nowhere, and Yoda pulls out a lightsaber, which completely goes against his character, what he stands for in the original trilogy. So I enjoy the hovering car scene, I enjoy the conveyor belt scene. The arena fight and the battlefield scene is where I just get exhausted, and I just don't like the Count Dooku scene. People consider it the worst lightsaber fight in Star Wars history. And I honestly kind of agree, because yeah, it goes against Yoda's character, and people complained about this so much, and yet George Lucas didn't listen, considering Yoda does the exact same thing later on in Revenge of the Sith. And my problem with the action, there's so much stuff all over the screen, and these action scenes I was rather interested in checking out for myself, because I've been seeing them in reviews. What I didn't expect though, is that I didn't expect the conveyor belt scene, the arena scene, the battlefield scene, and then the Count Dooku scene all to happen in one big sequence. All of these, in my opinion, since they're all mashed together, I'd say that all of this is the climax of the movie. And it's exhausting to watch, considering that means the climax lasts for a full half an hour and a minute. It lasts for a full 31 minutes. And it starts off rather interesting, but the action, there's so much CG everywhere, it's just going on and on and on and on. You eventually get exhausted and bored with it, and oh. So that's where Michael Bay gets it from. Going back to characters, this is probably the worst aspect of the film, because, well, the writing is laughably terrible. But honestly, while it's terrible, I'd almost say it's terrible, like, in a funny way. Like, it's entertaining to watch and how bad the dialogue is, because I would rather listen to, like, the terrible monotone slash dialogue here than Phantom Menace, because while here it's just flat and boring in Phantom Menace, here, it's just bad, it's just funny. I don't like sand. It's rough. It gets everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, the script is pretty bad in this movie. A common complaint, and I agree with this complaint, is that, you see, Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi need to have chemistry, because since they barely communicate in the Phantom Menace, we need to show that they are actually really good friends. They fight well together. They express their feelings to one another. However, throughout pretty much the entire movie, they really just bicker, and they don't even spend that much time together. Because in the movie, Anakin goes off and does his forbidden love subplot, and Obi-Wan just goes and he does the stuff about trying to find out about the murderer and the assassinator and all this stuff while here, and they only come together at the end, and they only just swing lightsabers together. There's no chemistry or anything, and so we don't feel any emotional weight when they become enemies in Revenge of the Sith. I do like how this movie lessens Jar Jar though, because Jar Jar is only in a couple of scenes in this movie. And Jar Jar Binks is actually a character I forgot to talk about in my Phantom Menace review, even though he was in the script for my review. In short, Jar Jar Binks, yeah, he's pretty annoying, and he doesn't need to be in this movie series. Now, apparently I heard that originally George Lucas was going to have the twist that Jar Jar Binks was actually a Sith Lord and he was secretly working for the Sith and something, but then he changed it halfway through development of the trilogy, and instead he just lessened the character. That actually would have been an awesome twist. That's why I'm going to say that instead of being a theory, like people say like, oh, it's a theory. But no, I'm saying that it is correct, because apparently George Lucas originally planned on having that a twist, but decided never to reveal it because he changed it later on for whatever reason. Plus, why else would somebody get paid to animate a smile on his face in Qui-Gon's funeral at the end of Phantom Menace? But at least we do get less Jar Jar because, yeah, nobody likes him. And I will honestly say, I do like the scene where Anakin's mother dies. It is a rather emotional scene, and while it goes by really quickly, it was like, sort of felt like the first step of his journey to the dark side. In short, Attack the Clones is bad. Yes, it's bad. However, it's more laughably bad. Like, I can sort of laugh at what's wrong with it, and it's more watchable, in my opinion, than the Phantom Menace, because the Phantom Menace was just boring. However, with all the big CG and free things all in your face and everything, it just makes the movie very underwhelming, in my opinion. But I would rather watch an underwhelming film than a boring film. I'm going to give Attack of the Clones a D rank. I don't know why, I just get this exhausted feeling whenever I talk about Attack of the Clones. It's just a very underwhelming film in my opinion. But I would, again, rather watch this than Phantom Menace. However, before I get to Force Awakens, there's one more Star Wars film I have yet to talk about. Will The Revenge of the Sith be any better? Will I be able to confirm my own personal opinion for possibly the most divided Star Wars movie ever made? Find out in my review for Revenge of the Sith.